Yeah, I'm here with Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, the top Democrat on the Budget Committee. And I wanted to ask you, one of the things we were prepared for going into this hearing was Republicans to take on the Fed's dual mandate. Because a lot of them have been saying there's legislation out there. They should only be focused on price stability. We didn't hear that. Does that mean that legislation isn't going to go anywhere?
We didn't. They took it on indirectly a little bit by going after some of the monetary policies the Fed has taken, including the quantitative easing. But it was clear that they did not want to go toward their legislation, which would eliminate the dual mandate as it relates to full employment. Look, we've got millions of people unemployed in this country, and what we're seeing is that our Republican colleagues are running away from their own proposal because the consequence of their proposal would be don't care about employment within the United States, only focus on price stability, when in fact we need to do both.
Does that mean you think it's not going to come up in this legislative session?
Well, clearly there was not much attention the Republicans were giving to their own legislation. In fact, they seem to be running away from it.
All right, let's talk about the budget, because this is obviously the Budget Committee. The chairman got a lot of questions on fiscal policy, not always his bailiwick, but he said something I found very interesting, that the distinction between discretionary spending and mandatory spending was arbitrary. Does he have a point there?
Well, what he indicated was in order to get the deficits and debt under control, we need to look at both accounts. And that's absolutely true from the perspective of reducing the deficit. In other words...
But Democrats have been unwilling to give on Social Security, for example. On the other side of the hill, Harry Reid is saying we're not touching it. So doesn't it mathematically not work? You sort of have to touch it if you're going to deal with the deficit.
No. As the commission, as the Deficit and Debt Commission said, the bipartisan commission, you need to look at everything on the table. And the Republicans want to take a lot of stuff off the table. They don't want to talk about, the revenue side. They want to keep in place tax breaks for the folks at the very top. And what the commission said is, look, we got to talk about all this stuff. You cannot, put everything to one side and say we're only going to talk about the things we want to talk about. And we agree with that. And that's why hopefully we'll have a healthy discussion going forward.
Does a healthy discussion include Social Security?
Well, it includes a number of things with respect to entitlement. Social Security is obviously going to be part of a conversation. The big question, of course, is where do you go with respect to Social Security?
Let's talk about the debt limit. You sort of got what you wanted from the Fed chairman today. Democrats have been saying, look, we probably need to extend the debt limit, have this vote. You've got a lot of folks in the Republican Party, notably on the Tea Party side, saying, no, we don't want to do that. At the end of the day, we see an extension?
I think so. I mean, as the chairman made very clear today, you don't want to play around with the full faith and credit of the United States. That is a surefire recipe for financial and economic disaster. And he said, look, have your arguments about spending and taxes, but don't hold the debt limit hostage, because that is exactly the wrong message to send at this fragile time.
Let's talk about spending, because the Republicans have started to release their preliminary list of agency-specific cuts they'd like to make. Big ones to HUD, big ones in the energy space, a lot of renewables targeted there. Is this a list that stands firm, or a list that gets eroded in a negotiating process? You guys don't have a lot of power here, but on the Senate side they do. So how real a blueprint is that?
It's really unclear, and we're just beginning to sift through some of the cuts that they're proposing to make. Some of them will have an impact on the economy and jobs. I mean, a preliminary look at this, for example, demonstrates they're going to whack some of the loan guarantees to some of the energy programs. I mean, at a time when we're seeing oil prices go up, you really don't want to eliminate some of those important incentives for people to invest in clean energy. So we're going to look through these. I would point out that the bipartisan commission, the President's commission, tasked with reducing the deficit, said, yes, put together a long-term plan. Do not make immediate deep cuts that could threaten the economic recovery and put people out of work.
Well, they also took on, though, the big Democratic sacred cows, Social Security and Medicare, which means I guess we're going to talk about that a lot more as we go forward.
We will be talking about the whole shebang.
Okay, fair enough. Chris Van Hollen, Democrat of Maryland, thank you very much.